In your case, in which wars did you serve?
I served in Vietnam War.
Vietnam. And were you in the service during any other wars?
I was in the Army National Guard during Iraqi War, the Iraqi Storm, the first one in 91. And I was in the Air Force Reserves for Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003, 2002, that time frame.
And then, what was your, so can you just give me chronologically your branches of service?
Branch of service from 1967 to 1971. I was in the United States Army. I was stationed all over, mostly took my basic training at Fort Dix, went to Fort Riley. I was with D Company 1st Maintenance Battalion over in Germany. We went from Fort Riley to Germany and served there. Came back to Fort Riley, and I received my orders to Vietnam. I went there for a year and a day because they lost my orders. I had to stay an extra day. And came back, went to Germany again with the 7th Mid Brigade. I was motor sergeant with the 128th Evac Hospital in Ludwigsburg. I was in Ludwigsburg twice. The first time at one concern at the southeast part of the city, and then the second time I was in the northwest part of the concern of the city at Flat Concern. Coffee Barracks.
It's funny, all of Germany, they sent you back to the same concern.
Yeah.
Same place.
Yeah.
What was your, well, you retired in the end, finally. What was your highest rank?
Master Sergeant,
Master
Air
Sergeant
Force.
In the Air Force.
That's an E7.
So, Don, going back to when you initially enlisted the very first time,
yep.
Which branch was that, and what was, just tell me what made you decide to join the service to begin with?
My first branch of service was United States Army. What made me join the Army? Well, I was kind of drifting around after high school. I never did graduate high school. I dropped out. And I had a collection of jobs. And then at 19, I received my draft notice. So I immediately ran down to the Army recruiter and said, I don't want to get drafted. What can we do? So he says, don't worry about that. I'll take care of that. I tore it up and I went to the Army after that. And according to my scores, I rated very high in electronics and mechanical. So first I went in and they were going to make a lineman out of me, wire maintenance. Mm-hmm. But I kept on dropping off those telephone poles. And the last time I did, I grabbed onto the pole. Now they've had thousands and thousands of these trainees running up and down these poles with the spikes on the heels. So I ended up looking like the opposite end of a porcupine. I just had wooden slivers out of me. One of them hit the breastbone and went on the outside of the bone instead of on the inside. But if it got it in the inside, it was about that long, it would have hit me in the heart. So, needless to say, the sergeant major of the school said, where do you want to go? So, of course, I said, I want to be chaplain's assistant. And he said, forget it. You got an 8-month waiting list, you're not going. Pick another one. So I became a wheel vehicle inspector. Wheel vehicle mechanic. And stayed at Fort Dix, took my AIT there, and got my orders after that for to go to Germany, D Company 1st Maintenance Battalion.
What did your family, do you have any memories or recollections of your family's impression of your going into the service?
Well, my father was concerned. My father was a World War II vet. He was in the Army Air Corps. And he was concerned, he was afraid, he was going to go infantry, end up in Vietnam and get killed. I guess every parent that was in the military had that thought about his child. So I know he was concerned about it. My mother was not quite as much as I remember. You know, I have an older sister, and so there was no other sibling that was going in the military or in the military at the time. So I didn't have to be concerned with that, or she didn't rather. So that's about it. But Dad was concerned. He was a little teary-eyed when he saw me off. And,
Where were you living at the time?
in Hartford, Newington Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut.
So, what are your remembrances of your first days in basic training? Was that pretty challenging for you, or was that not as difficult as
It
you
was
thought?
very challenging. Uh, in basic, like I said, we went to Fort Dix, and I remember being in the reception center, and you're getting your shots and everything. And the first night, you get a briefing as to what's going to happen. And I remember after that briefing, they said, "Okay, here's how you make your beds," and they had somebody come over and show us how to make the bed, and everybody got into bed, lights out. We had a couple of us, they were fire guards, because back then, of course, smoking was a lot more prevalent than it is now. And they would keep the fire guards up 2 hours, make sure there was no fires going on. And I remember being in that rack, scared as hell. I didn't know what was going to happen or how I was going to do. I was concerned about that. I was young, small, and always was a small guy. A little afraid.
You remember when you first met your drill sergeants?
Yes. I think it was on the third or fourth day that we were in the reception. Sergeant King came over. Now, he was from a different platoon, but he came over, and it was very straightforward. He says, "Guys, it's going to be tough. Something you've never experienced before." He says, "You're going to hear a lot of language that some of you have never heard before. Just try to do the best of your ability." I remember him saying that. He says, "We expect a lot out of you, but," he says, we know that there's not too many here that are really geared up for this, and they know exactly what's going on." Basically, we're a bunch of scary kids, and he was telling us, "That's all right. We'll take care of you." 2 days later, we were in basic training. First time I met my first sergeant, my platoon sergeant, Sergeant White. He scared the hell out of all of us. He was just the opposite. He was just mean as a snake. From Arkansas or someplace down south. And he didn't like us northern boys, so he let us know that that's the way it was.
Well, did you have any? How did you, when things got really stressful for you, did you have any tricks or things you recalled or something to help you try and just kind of calm and get through it?
A couple of guys I was with, we were pretty good support system for each other. We had this guy, John Roach.
These are guys that came with you from home?
No, John came from New York. Barry Tranchetti came from Teaneck, New Jersey. He used to play semi-pro football, and he was a big guy, and he knew what was going on. He always had that air about him that, "Don't worry, things are going to be okay. So, just take it easy." It worked out very well, fortunately. I got through basic training, and I actually lived. I actually survived it.
You made it through.
I made it through. Yep.
All right. So then you went to your AIT, which you kind of just told us a little bit about that,
Right.
and how you ended up becoming a mechanic.
Mechanic, correct.
And your first duty assignment was Germany.
Yes. D Company First Maintenance Battalion. I made a little mistake on the introduction, but I went initially to Ludwigsburg, D Company First Maintenance Battalion, and I worked in the shop office for a little while, and then I worked in the tool room where they kept all the special tools. I had to inventory, hand them out, receive them back in.
What did you think of the idea? Did you even think of there's a possibility of going overseas to your first assignment? I mean, I'm sure you thought Vietnam probably, but
I did
you
think
Germany
Vietnam.
was an option?
90% of us went to Germany.
Oh, really?
Yep. About 8 or 10% of us went, or just about all of us went to either Germany or the U.S. Only a couple went to Vietnam.
And what year was this?
1968.
68.
Yep.
Vietnam
60,
was the coolest
end
one.
of 67, but actually we graduated 1968 January.
So Germany was a good.
Germany was a good gig. It really was. It was all right.
What did you think of Germany itself, the country being there and so on? What did you think of that? What were your impressions when you arrived there?
Well, once we got off base and I started walking around, I really liked Germany. Very well treated by the Germans. If you got away from the big cities, if you get into the smaller towns, they treated you pretty well. To my experience, I've heard other guys say just the opposite. But
So it's kind of based on.
it depended upon your attitude. If you went in there, you were a kick-ass American, and everybody had to look up to us. You were in trouble. But if you went in there and just walked around and just talked to the people like normal people, get along good.
So how long was your tour in Germany?
First time was, let's see, I got over there in January, and that lasted till about August of that year.
Oh, really? Just like 8, 9 months?
Yeah.
8 months.
Yeah. August, then we started prepping, and we went back to, that's when we were part of the original Reforger 1.
Reforger? Uh-huh.
Yep. They took the 24th Infantry, moved it from Germany, went back to Fort Riley, Kansas, set up there at Fort Riley, and then 90 days later, they went back for a 90-day war games.
And Reforger is the acronym for?
It was actually, I'm not sure what it was.
Return of Forces to Germany, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about. I didn't know it offhand.
So you left and went back?
Right. Went back to Germany.
But that was for Reforger exercise, just for 90 days? It
90 days in Grafenbeer, driving around in a gasoline supply truck, a tanker, a little 1,500-gallon tanker, in Graf in January with no heater. Froze my tail off.
Germany gets pretty cold, does it?
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah.
Okay.
And,
so then after the Reforger exercises, you returned to Kansas?
Returned to Kansas for about 30 days until I found my name up on the bulletin board to see the first sergeant. I went in and saw the first sergeant, and he says, "We get orders for you. You're going to Vietnam." He says, "You and these people," and there were about 18 of us, went from our company, went over to Nam.
So just to try and get the timing, I'm just curious what your timing. 8 months in Germany, you came back and you were in Kansas. And how long was it before you went back to Germany for Reforger? Do you remember?
Well, we ended up in Germany the second time for Reforger, January, February, March. We were in Kansas from August to losing. Yeah, about that time.
Just a few months.
Just a few months, right.
And then after Reforger, how long? I'm just getting an idea. You were moving constantly. I mean,
Yeah.
You were always on the move. Okay, so you came down on orders for Vietnam.
Correct.
Did you go, you and the 18, you guys went individually, or did you go as a unit, part of a unit, or?
I think I went over with 2 or 3 guys. First, we had to go to Fort Lewis, Washington, for a week. RVN training, Republic of Vietnam training. And that was probably May of 69, or April of 69. Went there for that time, and then we hopped on a private flight, and we flew over to Vietnam. I guess it was 707 or DC-8, something like that. Wasn't military.
No. What were your impressions heading over? You're heading over there as a motor mechanic.
Right.
What were your impressions of on your way to Vietnam and when you arrived, your first days there?
Well, on the way over, of course, we heard nightmares about this happening, and 10 of 68 happened not too long before that, and all we could think about was, boy, we're going to get off the plane, there's going to be rockets flying all over, and of course we expected the worst. We landed at Tan Son Nhut, and it's like a very, very busy airport. That's all it was. Hot, incredibly hot. We had left, the cool air of Fort Lewis, right near Seattle, Tacoma, and hit there. And boy, they opened up that door. It's like, oh man, hot and humid.
You really feel it.
Yeah, really felt it.
So what happened? You got there, you got off the plane, and how did the process go for you to go to end up wherever you ended up going in Vietnam?
Took us over to Long Binh, over to the replacement battalion. Now, I forget whether it was the 21st or the 24th. One takes care of Germany, one takes care of Vietnam. I think it was the 24th in Saigon or Long Binh. And that only lasted, I don't think even a full day, but they just took information, took a copy of your orders, and within a short period of time, within a day, I think, I was sent over to 29th Support Group to their company area. And I stayed there for 2 days, and they said, okay, your truck is here, you go in the first 610 Maintenance Battalion down in Phu Loy, probably about 12 miles away. So we hopped on the truck, and off we went. Landed at the 610 Maintenance Battalion, headquarters main support company.
So what was your daily routine like there?
Well, when I first got there, I was assigned to the main automotive shop. And while I was down there, I ran across this warrant officer, chief warrant officer, Mr. Staggs. And I said, Chief, you remember me? I was at 1st Maintenance Battalion. He goes, oh, Robbie. That was my nickname back then. He says, yeah, I remember you. And so we started talking for a few minutes. And he said, well, I'll see you around. Next day, I get called up to the shop office. He was a shop officer. And he says, you want to work for me? I said, sure, I'd love it. So he says, go on into the inspection and talk to Sergeant Harborough. He's the section leader over there. So I went over, talked to Sergeant Harborough. He says, you want to work here for us? And he says, you'll be inspecting wheel and track vehicles. I said, I don't know anything about track vehicles. He says, I do. I'll train you. Okay. So, and thanks to Mr. Staggs, I ended up there. And I really liked it there. It was Vietnam. It was hot. It was sweaty. There was always constant fear of being rocketed, because we did get rocketed, we did get attacked. But I mean, it was a big base. It had a lot of helicopters on it and a lot of Cobras. So it was well protected. And if Charlie hit us, we hit him back. We hit him hard.
So if you're going to be in Vietnam, you were in a good place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How often do you think your base came under attack? Like daily or once?
Probably 2 or 3 times in a week. And mostly that was just small arms fire at night, just probing the lines. Really attacked, really hit hard, maybe a half a dozen times that I can remember. Like I said, our forces there were so geared toward defensive coverage with the attack helicopters. Charlie kind of laid low on us. He didn't hit us too hard. Also, we toward the end, we had the 11th Armored Cav there, and they had Dusters, which are basically a track vehicle with twin 40mm cannons, and they would just sit up on the line every quarter mile or so apart, and if anybody was foolish enough to come in, they got hit hard. So
Well, when the base did come under attack, what were if there were any, what were your actions? What were your required actions at that point? Were there any? Did it usually not involve you?
we were secondary. If you were on the out on the line on guard duty, of course, you would man your position right there. If you were not, you would initially take to hit the in front of all the hooches. We have sandbagged areas, reinforced sandbags. So we would hit in there, and then we'd get our rifles, and they would tell us where to go from there. Our area was probably 100 meters in back of the line, and we would go out and man that line in case the enemy broke through. Secondary fighting position, defensive fire position.
Okay. Well, during your time there, you were there for a year and 1 day,
Right.
You said. So, does anything stick out in your mind that was particularly unusual or interesting to you, or was it pretty much routine once you got used to the idea that you could be?
Well, once the routines set in, it was pretty much get up in the morning, have first formation, fall out, go to chow, and then hit directly up from there up to the shops. And we would do our duty up there. And that probably happened 300 times a day, 300 times a year, rather. We worked a lot of Saturdays. Not too much on a Sunday, but we did work quite a few Saturdays. We weren't like infantry where you're on duty 24/7. We did have a set routine. And a lot of the base camps were the same, Long Bend, Coochie, all of them, like, especially around our area.
All right. So, after your year there, where'd you go next? What happened after that?
All right. Let's see. I processed out, got under Freedom Bird, headed home, arrived at Fort Lewis again. I'm sorry, Oakland Army Air Terminal. We didn't hit Lewis. And they took us there. They gave us our military uniforms.
Is that Oakland, California?
Yeah. Class A uniform. Took us over to San Francisco. Put us on a flight going back to Hartford to get your tickets. Went back for 30 days. So, in between time, I had received my orders. I'm going back to Germany.
While you were in Vietnam, you got orders for Germany?
Right.
Okay.
I said, oh, great. So all they had, of course, is to put down the replacement battalion that you're going to. Once you get to the replacement battalion, they would decide where you're going. So I said, okay. But I really didn't want to go. I had 8 months left to go. Now, they told me when I was in Vietnam, if I extended another 90 days, I could have gotten early out. Like I said, I was young and dumb. I said, I don't want to extend here for 90 days. Who knows? I might get killed. I'm going to go to Germany. So I went to Germany. I did go down to the Pentagon, try to get my orders changed, and they said, are you going to get married? And I said, no, I'm not going to get married. They said, well, we can't change your orders unless you're going to get married. Now, all I probably have to do is say, yeah, I'm going to get married, and I could have stayed stateside. But, young and stupid. I went to Germany again, number 3, third tour. So, but it was fortunate because I did like Germany. I got out. I traveled around as much as I could. When I went there, I got at the replacement battalion, and they said we're looking for wheel vehicle mechanics down in they mentioned the Stuttgart area, and they said, you're one, would you like to get on there? Sure. So they gave me a choice, and I said, oh, okay. Because I was an E5 by then. I was Spec 5, a specialist with class. So I went down there, and I got assigned to the 128th Evacuation Hospital. Sort of like a MASH unit. And when I got to, first of all, I stopped off at 7th Brigade headquarters, co-located at Coffee Barracks. So uh, they said, "You're across the street," so they sent me across the street. I talked to the first sergeant there, and he says, "We're looking for a motor sergeant." So he says, "We'll have to promote you, we'll lateral transfer you from Spec 5 to Buck Sergeant." I said, "Okay." So I went up, and within 2 days I was up in the motor pool, and I had 2 actual mechanics. The rest of my mechanics and staff were all medics. They were cross training. So, but it was a good crew. I had one medic who was my lead mechanic, and he was an ace. He was really good, Matt. So, good outfit.
Well, let me ask you.
Sure.
Remember where we're at. We'll come right back to that.
Okay.
I just want to ask you. San Francisco, in particular, was known as all over the country were rough areas for soldiers coming back from Vietnam, where they experienced some people who were upset and angry.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to know if when you came back from Vietnam, if you ran into any problems going through airports or what have you with civilians protesting or what have you. Not everyone did. I just know you said you came in through San Francisco, so I was curious.
Yeah, I came in and something did happen, but I don't really want to go into because
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
There was an incident that did happen concerning me. I just rather let it go.
Okay. I just bring it up because it is a part of history.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in Germany, you're now the motor sergeant.
Yep.
Sergeant. And how long was this tour this time?
This was short term, 8 months.
8 months.
Yep.
Okay. And this tour ended along with, it was your ETS date? Your end of
That's right. Yeah, I ETS out of there.
Your last days in the Army.
Right. Right. The first sergeant picked me up in his car. He drove his car up the Rhine-Main Air Base, and me and another guy, and he dropped us off personally, which was nice.
Yeah, normally they'd throw you on the bus or something, right?
No, it's on the back by Deucen Ave with the duffel bag and drive you up there. But yeah, it was great. My first sergeant was a class act. John W. Rankin, I'll never forget him. He was probably 6'3" and probably 6'3" wide. He was a big man. Weighed well over 300 pounds. But just easygoing, very knowledgeable about his role and his job as a first sergeant. And told me the first day what he expected of me. He says, the motor pool's a mess. He says, I got a drunk as a motor sergeant now. He says, and he tries his best, but he says he's not doing the job. So I went up there. We got things straightened out. They hadn't passed an inspection, God knows how long. I passed a CMMI inspection. I passed an IG inspection. So I was golden in my first sergeant's book, and it worked 2 ways.
What's CMMI?
CMMI was Command Material Maintenance Inspection.
Oh, okay.
It's a big mechanical inspection. You look at all your vehicles. Look at the log books, look at the records, make sure everything's all good. And it was. I kept my guys up there quite a bit until they got it done the way that I wanted it and the way the brigade wanted it. Like I said, our brigade headquarters is literally across the street from us. So I had them go over and do a pre-inspection, and then when they were satisfied, the other inspection came along and we were good to go. So he was very grateful about that. And, he treated me well, and I have no complaints about First Sergeant at all. He was a great man.
So now you're getting out. You happy to see the Army in your rearview mirror, or kind of bittersweet, or?
No, I was happy to see it. I figured I had more to do on the outside. It didn't work out that way. I kicked myself because I had a great GI Bill at the end of, I had 10 years to go to college. I didn't. I got married and raised a family instead. So, bittersweet in that respect toward, for me. But as far as seeing the Army in the rearview mirror, bye. And I had no complaints. So.
But that wasn't the end of your military service. So
No.
tell me, you enlisted somehow somewhere else, and what was your decision process for deciding what you were going to do and why you enlisted where you did and how things progressed from there?
In 1976, I was looking at my military experience, and I thought, geez, I'm throwing that away. I got 3 years, 8 months. Maybe I can go in the Guard or the reserves and extend it. They say once you get over the 10-year hump, it's easy. You're coasting after that. So, in 1976, I went down to the Brandon Airport in Hartford, and we had a Army artillery outfit there. 192nd Field Artillery, 2nd Battalion, 192nd. So I went down there, I talked to a full-timer there, and they were co-located with 43rd Brigade headquarters, infantry headquarters. So I talked to the recruiter there, and he said, how would you like to come on for 3 years? So I said, sure.
That was in the reserves or as a full-time?
Army National Guard.
Guard, okay.
Okay. So they had just brought the artillery battery, A battery, up from the whole battalion was down in Norwalk, down the National Guard Army down there. And they brought A battery up to Hartford. So I joined A battery. I was assigned to the motor pool. And there were a couple of other guys there with me. One of them outranked me, so he was a motor sergeant. He had more time and grade. He was a staff, I was a book sergeant. So he was motor sergeant, and let's see, I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's right. So stayed there for about in A battery. Initially, till about 1980. And I left because I was having some problems with work. They didn't like me doing military and civilian at the time. I was working with the state of Connecticut. So I left for about a couple of years. Then I came back in, and I saw the battalion sergeant major down in Norwalk. He says, you want to come back in? I said, yeah, I'd like to. He says, okay. So I joined the unit, became the motor sergeant in, because they had personnel changes while I was gone. So I stayed with them for a number of years.
Okay. So how did when did you actually leave the National Guard and then you ended up going into, is it the Air Force Reserve?
Yeah.
How did that occur?
Let's see. I left the National Guard in '88. I had switched units from A battery. I went over to the 140 B Company, 143rd Support Battalion, which is in Southington. And I was in the motor pool there. And Operation Quicksilver came along. Operation Quicksilver was a way of thinning out the National Guard. It was kind of overstrength at the time. And the way they did that was through attrition and also cracking down on the PT tests. And if you're a little bit over on your PT test times or scores or whatever, you were gone. No uncertain terms. You were released. So I saw the handwriting on the wall. I said, I got to get out of this outfit. So I went over to the Air Force Reserves in Hartford, to the recruiter over there, and I said, what do you got for openings? And he said, Upper Westover, And he says, we have a small outfit down in Orange, Connecticut. But he says, most of our strength is up at Westover. So he says, but you'll have to lose the stripe. So at the time, I was a staff sergeant. And in between, I'm going to back up for a minute. In between my B Company 143rd and my second tour with A Battery, I went to brigade headquarters and I became a fire support sergeant. That only lasted for about 4 years. And while I was there, I went from staff sergeant, then I made an A Battery. I went up to sergeant first class. And I worked with a major and two other guys, and we were in charge of all the FOs and forward observers and the artillery personnel that were in fire support. So we had about 80 people between all the different artillery and infantry battalions in the state that were in fire support. Every outfit had 2 or 3 guys that were call in fire. So in the meantime, I got promoted to sergeant first class, as I said. So getting back to Air Force Reserves, I'd have to lose the stripe. So I went from sergeant first class C7, I went down not 1 but 2 stripes. It worked out. I went down to a staff sergeant in the Air Force, which is an E5. So I took that with a grain of salt. I figured I'd get it back. And I did get it back when I retired. But anyway, in between, I went from staff sergeant in the Air Force, in the reserves up at Westover. Went into the aid shop, aerospace ground equipment. Anything that they use to service the aircraft with, we work on. That includes, well, now it includes nitrogen carts for liquid oxygen. We didn't work on those, but they do now. But all the stands, all the generators that they use to work on the aircraft, air compressors, high pressure and low pressure air compressors, air conditioning units, we worked on everything. They told me you'd have to go to Shepherd Air Force Base when I got there and take 17 weeks of training. I said, I can't do that. And the shop chief told me, either go or you can't be in my unit. He says, it's not that hard. It's easy. You'll be down there with a bunch of kids running a pipeline. So off I went down to Shepherd Air Base, 17 weeks. I learned more in the Air Force than I knew in the Army. It just blew me away how much training I got inside of 17 weeks. And when I came back, I was assigned a couple of trainers, worked on the equipment. My skill level went up, and I got up to what they call a 5 level. Now, you start off as an apprentice, now you're up to a journeyman. I became a journeyman, 5 level. And things were going very well. Then there was an opening there to be a full-time mechanic. I applied, and I was fortunate enough. I had enough people that saw the kind of work that I did. Of course, it was older than most of the kids were coming in, so I had a lot of experience. So it worked out very well, and I eventually became a 7 level, which is a craftsman, and worked in the training office too. So all the training that went through me and this other, as a sergeant. And the training that went on, you have your trainees, you have your trainers, and then above that you have people who would sign off to make sure the job was done properly, like an inspector. So I kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, from there, you got, what, your E7 back?
When I retired.
When you retired, it didn't do with your E7.
I was a tech sergeant. I went from staff to tech sergeant they came out with a program where if you had more than 16 years total time, or 4 years time and grade as a staff sergeant, you would automatically become a tech. So I became a tech.
Oh, okay.
It was like a shake and bake deal. Okay, you know I'm tech. So, but when I retired, because I had an E7 slot in my Army National Guard time, I retired at the E7
Okay.
rating, which is very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And what year was that you retired?
Out of the
Out of the Air Force.
Air Force Reserve, 2007.
2007.
November 2007.
And you're
I got to be 60 years old, and they said after 60, we don't want you around anymore. So they gave me the boot, which they do to everybody.
So you really led a life of service. I mean, you started in 67?
67.
So what's that, 40 years, off and on.
Yeah, off and on.
Awesome. So how do you think your service changed the way that you led your life in any way? You think it bettered your quality of life later, or do you think it
Phenomenally changed it. Changed it around a lot. I was a 19-year-old kid. I was really lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I said, I worked a few jobs here and there. What are you going to do now? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Should have stayed in high school. Should have graduated, gone on to college. I didn't. So, but I put that behind me now. But yeah, the military gave me more structured life, more organized, a lot more than I ever would have been.
Did you ever get to use your GI Bill?
No, not really. I did go to. I went to the community college of the Air Force. Mm-hmm. So I graduated from that with an associate degree. I went to Tungsas Community College, and I got an associate degree in that. But that was paid for by, I was a state employee at the time, and I had some money coming in from that. They would pay for summer classes. And the only thing I've had to pay for, well, I did use part of it as, I guess it was a Montgomery bill. And that paid for some of my class. But as far as the original 10-year GI Bill of Rights that I had when I first got out, no, I didn't use any of that.
So have you joined any organizations like VFW or anything like that, or stayed in touch with any?
No, I didn't join the VFW or the American Legion. No particular reason why. I'm a Freemason, so that takes up quite a bit of my time. I do that too. I'm thinking of joining the VFW though, or either that or the Vietnam Veterans of America. They have a big chapter down in my other house down in Florida. So.
Have you had any reunions or anything like that with your Vietnam unit?
No. No, I go online quite often to check it out, and I've never found anything. I never find anything as far as 610 Maintenance Battalion or any of the associated bodies. I do find for some of the helicopter outfits, but I wasn't part of them. So.
Right. Okay. So, Don, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like to talk about here before we close?
Can't think of anything offhand.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your 40 years of service and for taking the time letting us interview you.
It was my honor and my pleasure to do the interview.